think the administration feels very optimistic. Obviously, you've seen, Steve, that the president's entire team, including Special Envoy Witkoff and Secretary Rubio and the vice president and the president himself, Secretary Hegseth as well, have been working so hard on this effort, and they all really want to see this war come to an end. They had very good talks with the Ukrainians in Florida, and now, of course, Special Envoy Witkoff is on his way to Russia. This is sort of the shuttle diplomacy that you've seen from this administration play out, where we speak equally with both sides. We've put points on paper. Those points have been very much refined, but we do feel quite good, and we're hopeful that this war can finally come to an end.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt discussing the ongoing peace talks to secure an end to the Russian-Ukraine war. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are in Moscow right now. They're set to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin today to iron out details on President Trump's 19-point peace plan. Russia and Ukraine trading drone strikes this weekend. Ukraine hit a Russian oil tanker on Saturday in the Black Sea using Navy drones. Moscow carrying out strikes in Ukrainian territory, reportedly killing at least 4 people and injuring many others. I want to bring in Heritage Foundation Vice President of National Security and former Trump Foreign Policy and Deputy National Security Advisor, Victoria Coates. Victoria, good morning to you. I want to gauge your expectations for this meeting between Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and Vladimir Putin. Do you get the sense that there is a deal that Putin is willing to accept? Because all of the rhetoric we've heard, whether it's from Sergei Lavrov or from other officials in the Russian government, is Putin still has this all-or-nothing approach to Ukraine.
Well, good morning, Cheryl. Good to be with you. I mean, we always have to sort of temper our expectations when we're dealing with Vladimir Putin. He's highly unpredictable, but the important thing here is he's not really acting as an independent nation. He is completely dependent on China here. So he's probably taking his marching orders from Beijing. And we're 4 years into this war at this point. It needs to end. That's been the president's very clear message since the campaign. He's been working hard on it now for 11 months of his second term and sending his top people to Moscow to see what might be possible. So I would say expectations have to be realistic. But at the same time, if China is interested in getting to a deal, it's interested in ending this war, then you might see Putin start to move.
Yeah, I want to bring in Chris Johnson in this conversation because that energy component and those strikes on Russian energy facilities, I think, is so important. Chris, go ahead. Yeah, on the energy side, as we're seeing strikes on those energy infrastructure targets, do we see potentially that moving Russia or Putin generally to a more amenable peace plan that's more pro-Ukraine or acknowledges Ukrainian sovereignty in the future? Or is it just the China thing and that's what is driving his decision making?
No, I think it's a combination, Chris. I think energy is critical here. But the more important thing is choking off Russia's exports. So, yes, I think we should go after these, the Ukrainians rather should go after these individual assets, the shadow fleet that's operating through the Baltic Sea. But look at the big buyers of Russian energy. First and foremost, China. Then we have India. And then, most shamefully, we have the European Union, which bought more Russian energy last year than they ever have before in the third year of this war. It's just, it's madness that Europe is essentially paying Putin to wage this war on their soil. So that has to end. They say they're going to get off of Russian oil by 2028. That's too late. This war started in 2022. So that has to end. We have to choke off those exports. That also, I think, will move Putin. All right. Well, hopefully we're going to get more details this morning on what we're hearing out of those talks in Moscow. I want to move on to Venezuela with you. President Trump holding a meeting with top military and national security advisors last night to discuss the next steps, for the growing tensions with Venezuela. There's this new bombshell report revealing that President Trump gave Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro a stern ultimatum: resign and leave the country or else. Now, the president declared airspace over the country closed, and then he's been threatening and has been targeting narco terrorists at sea. Now he's threatening them on land. Watch this.
We consider Venezuela to be not a very friendly country. They send millions of people, really, and probably a number in excess of that. And a lot of those people shouldn't be in our country, from jails, from gangs, from drug dealers, from all of the people that came into our country shouldn't have been in our country.
Does your warning mean that an airstrike is imminent, or should we not read it that way?
Don't read anything into it.
The New York Times reported that you had a phone call with Maduro. Did you?
I don't want to comment on it. The answer is yes. I would say it went well or badly. It was a phone call.
Which is an interesting response coming from the president, Victoria.
No, it is. And I mean, this is President Trump offering Nicolas Maduro every opportunity to end this peacefully. You know, Venezuela should be a great friend to the United States, and historically has been. It's a beautiful country. It has resources, a wonderful population, close to the United States. That shouldn't be this way. These are the wages of socialism over the last 30 years under first Chavez and now Maduro, which have ruined that beautiful country. Now, the president sees the absolutely dire threat from Venezuela in terms of the drug trade that is harming American citizens, the cartels that are actually part of the Venezuelan government that are acting with impunity, again, murdering our citizens. And so he says it has to stop. And so this is the opportunity for Maduro to leave peacefully. He can go to Russia, he can go to Turkey, he can go to Iran. There are a lot of options. And he can maintain some of his fortune. I'm sure there's an off-ramp for some of his top henchmen as well. But the government has to change. And so that is for the people of Venezuela. They had an election last year. They elected the woman who just won the Nobel Peace Prize, Maria Corina Machado, who's a wonderful Venezuelan patriot. She's in place. She's ready to go. So this has to change, and it's really important, I think, for the American people to understand this is about their security.
But I think then what is the next question here? And this is something that the Wall Street Journal points out this morning in an op-ed about what if Maduro falls? You know, do you end up in a civil war there? I mean, obviously, if you look at the polling out of Venezuela, Maduro does not have the support Machado does. But at the same time, what is left? And I'm glad that you brought up the resources of Venezuela. It is an oil-rich country, which has always been shocking to, I think, many other observers in the world when you see an oil-rich country that has been plunged into poverty, some of the likes we've never seen in recent memory.
No, and that's where the United States and neighbors and partners to Venezuela can play a very constructive role. And bear in mind, Cheryl, it's kind of interesting. The Wall Street Journal was also reporting yesterday that there's a European angle to this, because a lot of this Venezuelan cocaine is being trafficked through northern Africa up into Europe, creating a problem for the European countries as well. So they have a vested interest. And it's one of the reasons, that we're hoping that maybe we have elections in Spain, because Spain can play a unique role in helping Venezuela if they have a strong prime minister. They don't currently, but that could be a really positive change here. And then you need to work with the Venezuelans on getting those government institutions into place. They used to have them, so there's memory of that. You can figure out who the right people are to run them. This shouldn't be that difficult of a transition for them because they have the leadership in place in Maria Corina Machado.
When you've got, I've seen estimates anywhere from 15 to 20% of naval assets that are based near Venezuela off the coast, you have to wonder about the advanced planning that might be taking place, at least behind the scenes right now. We shall see. Victoria Coates, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Cheryl.
All right, we'll see you soon.